What's up, Game Devs? T-Chan here, and welcome to episode 44 of Game Dev Loadout, where I chat with the best people in the game industry 7 days a week. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast for a new daily episode filled with valuable information. And now let's chat with today's featured guest, Matthew Viglione. Matt, it is a go time. Are you ready?
I am.
Awesome. So he is the co-founder of SomaSim, a Chicago-based indie studio founded in 2013 to create simulation games. He has extensive experience in creative direction, writing, and graphic design. He also done a few GDC talks, such as his latest one called Running a Post-Apocalyptic Indie Studio. So go ahead, Matt, give us a bit about your personal life and how you got started in the game industry.
Sure. Before I was into games, and I started SomaSim, I spent a long time as a graphic designer and a corporate communication professional. So I started out as a book designer way back, and then for 10 years I was the director of communications for a large nonprofit out in San Francisco. And so, yeah, I basically was, in charge of contractors, writing, design, visual design, basically a creative director. And so when it came time to found the studio with my co-founder, I sort of took on those roles in addition to my other main role as the lead designer at SomaSim. So I sort of came into game design via like art direction and creative direction. And from game design, just from, playing a lot of strategy games and, redesigning, remodding, and doing a lot of playing around with like games that are more open and moddable, like Europa Universalis or things like that. So yeah, that's sort of the very quick path of what led me from, a graphic designer into a game designer.
Now, so your company specializes in simulation games. What is something we game devs probably don't know about creating simulation games that we should?
Basically, they're all like really complicated systems of numbers under the hood. So, if you look at a game like our current game, Project High Rise, it's all about, huge systems of numbers and how they interact with one another. And we use a lot of spreadsheets to sort of model the systems that we build. So we do a lot of systems designing and then hope they're fun. Like one other thing is it's sort of a leap of faith. Like when you start making a simulation game, you sort of have some things that are moving around on the screen and you play it for a while and you're like, wow, that's not fun. But you sort of have to have faith that your design, once it's implemented, will be fun. Like I think it took quite a while before Project High Rise was actually fun. And then one day I sat down and played it, and it was like 4 hours later. I'm like, whoa, I just spent 4 hours playing the game. I guess we're at the fun point. So yeah, like some games, you play them and they're like immediately fun, like from a very first prototype. Simulation games don't really work that way. Like the first prototype of a simulation game is usually like a very basic core loop that doesn't really do anything but loop. And then as you layer on systems of more complexity on top of that, that's when the fun starts to show up. And sometimes it takes quite a few of those subsequent systems for the fun to be there.
I ain't gonna lie, I do. When I play simulation games, it does take me a while to get used to it. And if people had to teach themselves your expertise, what would you suggest they use in order to make sure, they're using the right tools to make simulation games?
Well, and like I said, spreadsheets are sort of key because you have to understand how the numbers are relating to one another. And that's what spreadsheets are, that's what they were designed for, to, model finances, to model mathematics, to model other number systems. So since simulations sort of bottom out in those, like being able to really manipulate data like that in a spreadsheet and design the spreadsheet is sort of a precursor to being able to design a simulation games with all of the systems and interdependencies.
Now, this is probably an obvious question. Do you have to be really good at math in order to make a good simulation games?
Oh, I'm terrible at math. That's why I use the spreadsheets, because the spreadsheets are the ones that are good at math.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. And now, what are common mistakes, even at a pro level, that game makers make?
I think, and I see it a lot, and it's something that we're always conscious of, is sort of not understanding your audience, like not understanding like who's going to be playing your game, why they're going to be playing your game, and why they will like your game. Like it's something we always are conscious of, like who are our players, what are they looking for, and as we develop our game, like making sure that we're making the game that our players will enjoy and will like, instead of making something that we might like and two other people might like, but not like there's not like a mass appeal there. So just I think not taking into account how you're going to sell your game, who's going, and then beyond that, who's going to buy it, and what their expectations of your game will be.
Yeah, you gotta do that research and that communication. And I'm curious, like when you take your game and test it out or let players play it, how long does it take for them, I guess, to get into it?
Well, that's a challenge with games like ours. Like we were at PAX West and East this year, and we basically had to give people 20 minutes to sort of get into it, because you have to get through the tutorial, and even if you speed run the tutorial, it's still 10 minutes. So then they have to then get into it a little bit. So we basically had to give people 20 minutes to get into it. It's not like a controller or some games are immediately accessible. Like people can see the mechanic right away. It takes a little more longer to get into ours, so it makes showing them at shows and stuff like that a little more challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. And they're players are constantly playing different games, so they're on the move really quickly.
Yeah.
How do you keep them there to make sure to keep playing and fully understand the game?
Well, that was a twofold challenge for us. Was people would sit down, look at it, and then they would either just bounce off immediately and be like, "Oh, it's not for me." But then we would also have the other problem of, and that's why we had to limit to 20 minutes. We'd have somebody who would be sitting there for half an hour while we have "Can I play? Can I play?" He's playing. So we had to have these 20-minute blocks where we had to tell people, "You have to go now," and let somebody else play for a while. Just because of once people get into it, they will sit there and play for a really long time.
And that's a good sign. That's a really good sign, then.
Yeah, that was one of, when we first started having that, when we had to tell people, maybe you should stop playing now. That's how we were sort of knew we were at a good point. And initially in the game development, people would get confused and wouldn't know what was going on. And then as we developed further, it was, we would get to the point where, we'd say, we have to go now. We would be the last ones in the room. We have to go. Nobody else is here. So
now, overall, what are your key principles for a great simulation game?
I think you have to. First of all, you have to simulate something that people find compelling. Which is why I think you see a lot of city simulation games and subway simulation games and things in space. So I think there has to be a fiction underneath it that people can relate to, and that's aspirational, so that at the end of the day, you feel like the architect of a skyscraper, or you feel like, you're a mission control planner at NASA and you've built this space program, or you're a great city planner and you've, mastered the transportation system of Berlin. So I think having that kind of compelling story is key. And also, having a little bit of mystery there too. Players like to, when they get into a simulation game, feel like they're sort of mostly understanding what's going on with the simulation, but that the simulation still does things that surprise them sometimes. And our game does that to me sometimes. Why did it do that? Just to have a little bit of mystery, so that players feel like they're both understanding and mastering the system, but at the same time, the simulation can be unpredictable at the same time. So I think you need to have that compelling storyline, and also a system that is complex enough so that when players feel they've mastered it, they feel good about it, but that it's also complicated enough that it can still surprise them even after they've been playing for a long time.
Yeah, I think simulation games are usually much harder compared to other genres as well. And have you ever heard of that farming simulator? I heard it is really popular, but I forgot what country it's from.
Yeah, they're German.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that is really popular.
Yeah, we were at Gamescom last year before we launched Project High Rise in Germany, in Cologne, and Gamescom is just scary huge. I think there were 350,000 people there last year or something. It's scary. But when we got there, the farming simulator had this giant booth with tractors that they drove in, and it was sort of an only in Germany kind of moment. This sort of yeah. I think there are 17 of them or something like that. Yeah, they're really popular in Germany.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. I think that's amazing that they've had that kind of longevity and they have that audience that looks for the next farming simulator game.
Now, let's take this on a more personal level. And I'm pretty sure you had some bad moments. What was the worst moment of your career? That one moment that's still vivid in your mind? Be very detailed and tell us that personal story.
Releasing games is both amazing and soul-crushing. And I think, it's one of those moments when we released Project High Rise that was a fantastic moment. Like, people were playing it and enjoying it. But at the same time, I spent so much time fixating on the negative reviews, the bad feedback. I mean, there weren't many, but to me, it felt like there were, I don't know, that they were crushing. And it took me a while to be able to deal with the fact that while there are a lot of people who really liked the game, some people just hated it. And I had a really hard time dealing with the people who would hate the game. And just talking to other game developers helped me get through it. Like, people saying, well, yeah, that happens. If a lot of people really like your game, it's inevitable that some people really hate your game. And it took me a really long time, and I'm probably still working on it, of coming to terms with the fact that, some people say some really, really horrible things online because they don't know, like, they think they're talking to developers, but it's really just, there are three of us. So just three, they're really just talking to three people, and being able to cope with that sort of emotional roller coaster of releasing a game and having it out there in the world was, and still is, like, really hard. So yeah.
Oh, what advice can you give game devs? That's, I'm pretty sure that's one of the worries of game developers before releasing the game. They're concerned of what if people really hate this game and to get all these negative feedback. And of course that's going to happen regardless. And, it's online. Online comments are really, really mean. So
yeah. And
it's just something, you just got to deal with it. You got to push through it. You have to have a bit of a thick skin, but it's part of the game industry, as far as I know. What do you want to make sure a game does take away from that experience?
For me, what actually got me through it was actually engaging with the community, and, like, if somebody said, well, I don't like this about the game, and then talking to them and finding out what they really meant, what they were really objecting to, and realizing either I didn't think of that. Maybe we can look at it and see if that's something we can get in the game. And then you've converted that sort of negative feedback into a possible fan because you've done something that speaks to them. Or B, just realizing that you made the game that you wanted to make and not the game that mean fan wanted you to make, and just be okay with that's the game that we made and move on from that. I think it just, having some of that just kind of goes with the territory, unfortunately. But really engaging and building a community around your game can really help, because, now we're to the point where somebody comes on and says something, mean about the game or something like that, then we have a community of players that will pretty quickly push back and come to our defense or try to explain, well, without us having to do it. So, on one hand, it's great that, for me to engage and try to explain things, but when the community says things that, about the game that aren't the devs, that's helpful too. So building a community can be really important in helping you deal with some of that stuff.
How cool is that when your own fans are coming to your aid, I guess, to, say that your game is good. You don't have to change it. You don't have to do this and that because of the haters or the trolls or whatever you want to call them. And so that is really cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things that got me that got me through it, actually, was that, there were players on our Steam forums and other places that would, say things that I was thinking without me having to say them, and that was pretty cool. So, I mean, having that community of players around really helps. And also, I sort of alluded to it before, and we've got a pretty awesome indie game development community in Chicago. And that's an important thing, I think, for indie developers to have, is just because you're indie doesn't mean you're alone. So, have a community of people that you can hang out with and talk to. And we're really lucky in Chicago that we have really awesome game dev colleagues and friends to hang out with and talk through this. When something terrible and soul crushing happens to you, or to be able to get somebody's feedback on how to deal with it and talk through it is really helpful. So I think that sort of community of game players, but also your local community of game dev friends, is really important.
Yeah, go out there and game devs, find a community, communicate with them, do stuff with them, even online as well. You just got to communicate and build up this relationship with other game developers. Now, what is the best investment you've made? And it can be investment of money, time, or energy. And how did you decide to make that investment?
I think for us, it was probably deciding to work with a publishing partner for Project High Rise instead of trying to do it all ourselves. It's one of those things, like I talked about it a little bit in my GDC talk. You don't want to. I'm an art director, not an artist. You don't want to see the art that I would make. So realized that we're not good at that. So we went out and we worked and found an artist to work with. Same with sound. I feel like, we're terrible at marketing and PR and all that stuff that goes along with releasing a game. So just being able to go out and invest in that relationship with our publisher and have them help us was really invaluable to like getting us to where we are with Project High Rise.
Yeah, there you go. You hire someone to, I guess, work on your weakness. Like, for example, on my game, I hire an artist and programmer. Like, I'm terrible at that, but I was like the one that's leading the game design. So I just hired someone that figured my weakness because I know it's going to take me forever just to get good at programming and art. And that's a good thing. You could outsource or you could pay someone to help you do something. That's so good right now. Now, what is the one thing you're most excited about today in the game industry?
I think some people are freaked out about it, but I'm really excited about Steam deciding to get rid of Greenlight. I think that's great. Before, 5-10 years ago, we were at a point where there was a really small kind of opaque clique of people who were picking the games that were going to get on Steam and make it. And I really trust players to pick the things that they like. So I think Steam opening up is really exciting. I'm also kind of excited about the Switch. I love Nintendo and I love Nintendo games, so I'm just really excited. And I hope that the Switch does really, really well.
Oh, I love the Switch so far. And I believe it's going to be like a big indie heaven because it's just having a portable and able to play like small games everywhere you go. I think that's just perfect.
Yeah.
And to play Nintendo games as well. You can't go wrong with that. Come on. Okay, awesome. Don't forget Game Devs. You can check out my website for all those show notes that we just talked about. And now, Matt, we have reached a crunch time, the phase that Game Devs dread, but we are here to overcome it. Basically, I would ask you quick questions and you'll be giving us a ton of valuable information in return. Are you ready to crush it and release this show?
Yeah.
Yes. What was holding you back from joining the game industry?
Basically a fear of change and not wanting to go indie.
What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Gee, I love to write. I write all the time. I write all the time.
Do you do blogs and stuff?
I should do that more than I do, but just writing things for game stories, stuff like that. I just sort of it's stuff that never sees the light of day, but I love to write and crossword puzzles. Crossword puzzles really help you think about writing.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That indeed. Being independent and being indie doesn't mean being alone. It's really important to find helpers, find collaborators, find community.
Yeah, and indie community's growing so big now. How has a failure set you up for a later success? With
our first game, 1849, we released it on both tablets and PC at the same time, and that was probably not a good idea. And sort of it helped us realize that we need to cater to both PC audiences and tablet audiences differently, and that really helped us with Project High Rise.
Oh, so the audience is that big of a difference?
It's more of the UI, UI conventions, play styles, things like that are just really different. You can expect somebody to play a simulation game for 5 hours on their PC. I don't know if anybody's going to play a simulation game for 5 hours on their tablet. Plus, mouse overs and things like that you don't have on tablets. Just the players expect different things from their games and different kind of interactions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Share an internet resource we game devs should use.
Source control of some kind, be it Git or something like that. Source control is your friend.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely got to try those out. Now, this next question is a bit of a doozy, so take your time if you need to. Imagine you woke up the next morning in a brand new world and you knew no one. You still have all the experience and knowledge you currently have today. Your food and shelter is taken care of and you have a laptop. What would you do step by step on a path to become a great game developer?
First, I would start looking for good collaborators. Find an artist that I like, find a programmer who's into the games that I like. And then I would start to see, like, in this brand new world, what are the people playing? And then where do what they're playing and what's popular right now sort of match up with what I want to do? Then start thinking about, what games are out there and how could I change them to make them my own? So, somebody GDC was talking about, what if there was a game like StarCraft, but it didn't have combat? Like, how would that look? So, sort of take a game that you play a lot or that you like or that seems popular, and then take out what seems to be a core mechanic and maybe try replacing it with something else, see what else could work with that. And I guess this is just the designer and me talking, like how you would sort of approach making the next game. And then once I found that artist, once I found that programmer, just let's see what sticks for all of us. I think it works best if, we're all like really into the entirety of the game when the artists are contributing to design and programmers are talking about art direction, and it all sort of feeds back. We all sort of feed back on one another. That could be just because I make simulation games where they're all just giant loops that feed back on one another, and I look for that everywhere. But yeah, I think that's sort of what I would do. Yeah, but because I, like I said, you don't want to see the art that I draw, and I'm good at scripting, but not necessarily good at programming. I'd have to find people to help me right away. But without doing that, yeah, I think I would start thinking about, in this new world, what games are popular and how could we redesign them? How could we make them unexpected?
There you go. Yeah, you find a game that you can make your own and find the right people to work with that stay committed. Now we have reached the end, Matt. Go ahead and give us a parting piece of guidance and how we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Sure. I think a parting piece of guidance is, make the games that you love, find out what people are playing, and see where your passions and like the market and community interest align, and dive in. And you can find me on Twitter at SomaSim _ games, or www.somasim.com.
Awesome, Matt. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and for that, we are truly grateful. We look forward to your future work, and until then, we will catch you next time. Thank you, Game Devs, for listening, and remember that knowledge is only potential power. Execution is the game. I am so excited to announce our first sponsored giveaway with Game Dev Underground, where a winner can get a free 1-hour consultation with the founder, Tim Rusbeck. So if you have any questions on building and launching your game, get on this giveaway ASAP. This is a $1,000 value, and it can be yours. All you have to do is go to the show notes page at GameDevLoadout.com and sign up for my email list. That's it. So until then, keep on making great games, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.